We're in the information age, but facts are in short supply. Reject the noise, ask bold questions, and seek the truth with FBI whistleblower and common sense extremist Steve Friend. This is the American Radicals Podcast.
It is the American Radicals Podcast. It's Thursday, February 26, 2026. And today we're going to be getting into the Kayfabe that is the FBI. We'll give you our actual reaction to the FBI director's recent trip over to the Olympics, Milan, Italy, and also a recent whistleblower disclosure. Somebody's come forward again to talk about how Kash Patel's abuse of the FBI jet is now hindering some pretty serious operational needs. And we'll also do an FBI press release roundup. So, a lot to get to. Let's get after it. Kayfabe. That means fake. I think it's Pig Latin. It's normally associated with professional wrestling, which kind of explains our thumbnail today. And also, I want to connect it to my own recent experience over the weekend and contrast it with the experience of one Kash Patel, the director of the FBI's experience over the weekend. He took some heat because he decided to take upon himself to travel over to the Olympics. Now, there's been some spin attached to that. There's been going back and forth, various explanations to it. And it's culminated in 2 or 3 ulterior reasons other than just being a giant jerk and a fanboy who wanted to go and celebrate with Team USA. But let's do it the way we like to do it here. Maximum latitude, every benefit of the doubt. Let's look and assess the facts as we want to do on the American Radicals Podcast and begin with the New York Times, at one point a newspaper, which dropped this story. Headline reads, Kash Patel's Olympics schedule left plenty of time for leisure. So the schedule is an unclassified document distributed to federal agencies responsible for staffing events, generally corresponds to the broad outline provided to reporters last week. Roughly 6 public meetings and 2 classified ones. So he was there for a few days, had 8 total meetings and events that were attached to justify this becoming a business trip entirely, which necessitated him flying the jet and having the American taxpayer foot the entire bill. But it provides a start and end times for official meetings and suggests that Mr. Patel had long segments of personal and leisure time. Well, just how long and what really was going on there? Well, there was a spin afoot here, and I know what Kash Patel and his other buddies in the MAGA influencer space started a spinning ahead of time and during the time and after the time that he was caught there. And we'll share some of that with you and then get back to the New York Times piece. This actually came from the FBI director's work Twitter account, which is at FBI Director Kash, because he's too much of a jerk to call himself by his last name like everybody else. And his quote here is, great meeting this morning in Rome with the FBI's outstanding counterparts, Chief of Police Vittorio Pisani and the Italian Department of Public Safety. Now, take note of this one comment. Quote, back in July, we began discussing ways to build the security cooperation between our 2 countries, and today we signed a letter of intent to further enhance our cyber cooperation, allowing our agencies to more easily share information to combat global cyber actors on an even larger scale. So if we are to take the FBI director's word for it, last July, he started negotiating with his counterparts in Italy about how they needed to cooperate more on cyber matters. Okay, so let me break this down. Last July just happens to coincide with the National Hockey League's announcement that they were going to allow their players, their professionals, to participate in the Olympics in 2026. And on his personal Twitter account at the time, Kash Patel was MAGA Doppler excited about that. And he announced that he was going to go to the games in July. And then he thought, hey, maybe I could get the American taxpayer to pay for that. We could say that this is a work trip, actually, and I'll start to communicate with my counterparts in Italy about something. I don't know. Let's make it cyber matters because that sounds like it's official. No, actually, Director Patel, you sound retarded because if you wanted to talk about cyber, you know what you could do for cyber matters? You could do a Zoom call, particularly about cyber matters. That wouldn't necessitate you going over and signing a peace treaty. No, no, it was a letter of intent to continue to cooperate with each other. So you're formalizing a handshake deal? That's not really a good meeting, but we made sure we got lots of nice photo ops here, which he was really happy to share with you. So we'll throw those up there. Again, maximum benefit of the doubt. Here he is, has the letter of intent signed, very proud. Further on, we've got him wearing a suit. So, you know, it's mega, mega Doppler important. Putting his John Hancock on that document because it just had to be done and just had to coincide with the Olympics. I mean, does that sound a little bit suspicious to me? Hmm. So it does also to the New York Times. So we'll go back to the original piece. Again, the headline Kash Patel's Olympics schedule left plenty of time for leisure. And just how much time? So, a quote from the New York Times. And they actually are quoting the schedule that they got access to. Personal time and cultural activities, private dinners. His Sunday schedule listed only two events: the gold medal game between the United States and Canada, followed by his flight home. Now, the reaction came from the Assistant Director of Public Affairs, Ben Williamson, and his quotation was, "The leaking of his minute by minute schedule is a criminal act that jeopardizes security and will not be taken lightly." So Ben Williamson is threatening to criminally charge the New York Times for publishing an unclassified document that they got access to. Spoiler, Ben Williamson. Well, a couple of things, actually. Your boss, the director of the FBI, published his intent to go to Italy. He did it. He did it last July when he said, "I'm going to be there." So if you're really mega, mega Doppler concerned about his whereabouts, he gave it away. So he made you look like a jerk. And he made you look like more of a jerk because the way he comported himself when he was there, when he wasn't wearing the suit and tie and hanging out with his counterpart to sign a letter of intent. Then he saw fit to abuse his position so that he could walk into a locker room and celebrate the victory that he was not part of with the United States hockey team. He abused his position to go and hang out in a locker room with a bunch of naked men. Where's the hashtag Me Too on this? Don't take my word for it. Kash Patel was dumb enough to let himself be captured on video. All right, we could pause it there. We don't need to belabor him there. The FBI director was wearing a hockey jersey and then borrowed somebody's gold medal to then spill beer on people. He acted like a frat boy from an SEC school, completely unprofessional. And spare me, though, he just loves America so much. Spare me that he was there for signing a letter of intent about cyber stuff with Italy. That wasn't the only spin that we got, actually. We said that we saw that the former co-deputy director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, went out on Fox News and was talking about how, well, he was actually there to talk about security measures because the Olympics are going to come to Los Angeles in a couple of years, and he had to be there for that. We also saw the spin about, well, he was actually there to help support security for our athletes. We needed the FBI director there. Well, that doesn't hold a lot of water. He was there for the final few days of the Olympics. Did the opening ceremonies not present a security risk to the American athletes who were walking in mass at a potential mass casualty event where there were thousands upon thousands of athletes from all around the world and fans in the stands? Did that not present a security threat? What could he have gleaned and learned to apply to the Los Angeles Olympics from going to Milan in the closing days? No, he just facilitated a trip for himself and called it a business trip so he didn't have to pay the round trip fare. I also saw some spin about that. This was actually just cover for him because he's really secretly investigating the 2020 election, which somehow goes through Italy. Really? What kind of double-digit person are you that you think that Kash Patel has uncovered the 2020 election and it flowed through Italy? The FBI director doesn't investigate cases at all, let alone high-profile cases. They get briefed on them by people who are being briefed on that, by somebody who's being briefed on that, by somebody who's being briefed on that, by the case agent. That's just how much bureaucracy there is. If you truly believe that Kash Patel snuck off to Italy to investigate election fraud and then just, in his spare time happened to take in the gold medal match that he was talking about last July, then you're retarded and you deserve everything that's coming your way. Now, apart from the actual Olympic experience, there was a recent whistleblower disclosure that came forward and it went to Senator Dick Durbin's office. He's the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary. I actually sent him some of my whistleblower disclosures. That was when he was the leader of the Senate Judiciary because the Senate was held by the Democrats at the time. And he published this on his social media. This is the times we live in. Everything comes through Twitter, apparently. The quote from Senator Durbin: "A whistleblower just disclosed that FBI experts were delayed by at least a day in deploying to investigate Charlie Kirk's assassination. Why? There was an FBI plane and pilot shortage because Kash Patel was using them for his personal flights." It wasn't just limited to Kash Patel and the Charlie Kirk matter as well. It was also related to the Brown shooting. And apparently the operational unit that was held up was the evidence collection unit, or no, I'm sorry, it was the shooting reconstruction unit that was unable to board an FBI jet because pilots have to have mandatory rest time, just like a commercial pilot. That's why if you have a 6 a.m. flight and you're like, what, I'm the originating flight. The weather is outstanding. I don't understand. Why am I delayed? Well, it's because the pilot the night before probably got in and landed at midnight, and he has to mandatory have 8 hours of rest period before he can take to the sky again. The same thing is alleged here by this whistleblower. We haven't fleshed out the details of it, but it's at least somebody who's bringing that concern forward. And again, it's tied back to Kash Patel abusing his privileges as the FBI director, whether it's to have access to the private jet or it's to have access to watch the gold medal game. I mean, did he buy a ticket? He was retarded with that. Look, I wouldn't encourage this. It's completely a violation of your oath of office and an abuse of your power. But there are ways to be smart with it. Show up in a suit, dude. Show up in a suit and even get into the locker room that way and say, hey, look, the president of the United States, I got him on speakerphone here. He wants to wish you a congratulations. But you couldn't do that. You had to act like a frat boy, and now you're going to pay the price for it because if you haven't checked the calendar, the Dick Durbins of the world are on notice that they're going to likely be in the majority soon. And that's when the investigations are going to start, and you're going to be hammered. Now, the reason that I came up with today's show title, Kayfabe FBI, is because Kayfabe is connected to professional wrestling. And, had a recent experience that I want to contrast with the FBI directors before we get to our press release roundup. So over the weekend, while Kash Patel was out there and he was taking in the Olympics and injecting himself into a celebration by a bunch of athletes who had achieved something that was noteworthy, and won a gold medal for the United States Olympic hockey team for the first time in 46 years. Awesome for them. I took my 8-year-old son to a professional wrestling event. And let me just compare and contrast. We paid for our tickets. We didn't invade a locker room, though. I mean, we just took it in. It was a small event. It was an untelevised event. It was like the AAA of professional wrestling. It's a league or an affiliation or a federation. It's called NXT. These are the guys that are primed to be the next big thing in professional wrestling. And we were lucky enough that we lived relatively close to where they were having an event. I happened to catch it, bought some tickets, took my son there. We got him a replica championship belt. He's 8. he was really excited to have that championship belt. Almost as excited as Kash Patel was to put a gold medal around his neck that he didn't actually achieve or win, but he was really excited to have it. Again, my son is 8. We gave high fives to some of the wrestlers as they went by. We didn't bother them for autographs. They didn't know who they were. He didn't know who they were. He was just excited to have interaction. And then there came a moment. It's a moment that I'm never going to forget. It's the ultimate dad moment. I looked over at my son about midway through, and he looked upset. He was very emotional. He was flushed in the face. And I said, "Hey, are you wrong? Are you sick? Are you hurt? What's going on?" And he said, "No, I just love watching professional wrestling so, so much. Thank you." He welled up with tears of appreciation, and he thanked his dad for taking him to that event. That's how much it meant to him. At 8 years old, he was able to express his appreciation, and he was able to contain himself, unlike the ridiculous frat boy wannabe jackass who we have as an FBI director right now, who had to abuse his authority and position to work his way into a locker room and celebrate like a fool. We should put an 8-year-old in charge of the FBI. We'd be better off. All right, I think I've reacted to this enough. Let's do some of our press release roundup. And for those who are new to the American Radicals podcast, you catch us here every noontime weekdays on rumble.com/amradpod and also on YouTube at amradpod. If you haven't already, make sure, guys, that you give us a nice thumbs up, a like, a share, subscribe, do all those things. Help us trick that algorithm. We're trying to grow and expand out the brand here. But every once in a while, I am able to aggregate a certain number of press releases that are connected to social media posts that come from the FBI, where they basically take credit for work that they didn't do. And we like to expose that here. I'll ingest the information. I'll actually read it. It's not really that complicated. This is all public information. It's all available on social media. And then the press releases are available from the United States Attorney's Office from the respective areas. So let's work our way through with some of them here and expose just how much Kayfabe has gone on recently from the FBI. The first piece came from FBI St. Louis. Now, they talk about a minister, I guess, or no, he's a president of the Illinois church. He's an Illinois church official, and he's a pretty bad dude. But from the FBI St. Louis, here it is. I'll throw it up on the screen right now. Case update from FBI St. Louis. Illinois church official arrested, accused of producing child sexual abuse material. So kiddie porn. And the accompanying press release comes from the Department of Justice, Eastern District of Missouri. Headline: Illinois church official arrested, accused of producing child pornography. Details: bad guy's name is Michael Moore, president of Central Illinois District of Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod. A court-approved search of Moore's home found storage devices that contain videos of 3 juveniles in a bathroom. The search of the residence used by Moore and a different residence uncovered that hidden camera disguised in the wall as a clock and another one disguised as a Bluetooth speaker. The investigation began after one of the juveniles who was filmed by Moore told Vandalia Police Department that he discovered a camera disguised as an electronic device charger in a hotel bathroom. The discovery happened that morning when the juvenile awoke to discover this dirtbag, who deserves to go feet first into a wood chipper, staring at him while he slept, and we will say family friendly, pleasuring himself. The juvenile had that experience, was abused, and then reported it to the local police department, who executed a search warrant at this dirtbag's multiple residences, and I believe his place of business, was able to uncover it. And they found child sexual abuse material. And because the federal route for that, for manufacturing child sexual abuse material, is more enhanced at a federal level, typically it's more severe than at a state level, they took it to the feds, and the feds charged it. They forgot to credit the local police department for doing all the work, but you're welcome, America. Your FBI taking credit. Agent Johnson, no relation. All right, now let's go to FBI Seattle for our next one. At FBI Seattle, federal inmate who smuggled heroin into the FDC, Federal Detention Center, that's a prison, resulting in a fatal overdose, sentenced to 10 years in prison. Our accompanying press release comes from the Western District of Washington. Headline: federal inmate smuggled heroin into the FDC, resulting in fatal overdose, sentenced to 10 years. So they're just kind of ripping and reading, copying and pasting. What are the details here, and how was the FBI involved, integral, and necessary? So on November 14th, 2023, so 2.5 years ago, I guess congratulations to the Christopher Wray FBI if they were at all involved. Gabriel Armas was found slumped over the wheel of a car in a parking lot. When an officer knocked on his window, he drove away, officer being local police. The car he was driving got stuck in a bridge that had not been designed for vehicle traffic, and the bridge collapsed. He then ran away on foot, but a drug detecting dog found in his abandoned vehicle a bunch of baggies containing fentanyl and powder and crystal meth. And they also found identity cards that were connected to him. So a few days later, he was found in the area where the car was abandoned and booked into the Federal Detention Center. Why was he booked? Well, he was already on probation. He had already gone away on some drug charges and he had violated probation. And now we got to take some time to come up with some new charges because he fled and eluded local police and he was in possession of drugs again. So we have a violation of the original probation. And now we're going to have some more charges because the local police found him slumped over and chased after him. And the canine, the drug sniffing canine, that didn't come from the FBI. Again, local police were able to do it. So he was housed in a SHU, as Kash Patel likes to talk about. He's been to many a SHU, special housing unit, segregated housing. And during that time, his cellmate, died of an overdose. How did that happen? Well, investigation was performed by the prison and determined that this dude was continuing to possess and sell narcotics to inmates in the prison, and it culminated in the death of his cellmate. So that's an additional charge. So now we have an additional charge of him having the drugs on the outside when he was found slumped over by local police, and now having the drugs on the inside when the jail found him in possession of those. So some time lapses, authorities actually found some more drugs and they actually wired up, or I guess wired up is probably not the best way to say it. They were able to get guys who were buying drugs or at least aware that this dude Armas was selling drugs to flip on him, give him the goods. So they got some snitches and jam him up. And then a year later, this guy also admitted to another inmate that he was probably doing it. So FBI. Nope. Local police with the original pop, violating probation. And then the jail got all over that when he was violating and continuing to sell drugs. Well done, FBI. Just more Kayfabe. FBI Milwaukee has our next one. And this is a long post on their social media, on their Twitter account from at FBI Milwaukee, but just a couple highlights. Our bad guy here, his name is Edward Jackson. He was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison for possessing fentanyl and meth, and he had a gun. So drugs and guns, that's going to get you some time in the slammer. And let's find out just exactly what happened. Headline: repeat drug trafficker sentenced to 6 years. This comes from the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District of Wisconsin. On May 20th, 2024, congratulations, Christopher Wray and his FBI. The Wausau Police Department was dispatched to a residence for reports of domestic incident involving our bad guy, Edward Jackson. Short time later, his vehicle was located at a nearby residence. A canine from the Wausau Police Department alerted to the presence of narcotics. The car was searched, and during the search, the police found a backpack belonging to this guy who had some meth in it, some fentanyl pills, and a loaded firearm. No further information, no further involvement from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is a local police department, Wausau PD. They responded to a call for domestic violence. They got there. Probably the woman who was getting tuned up alerted them and said, "Hey, this guy's got drugs. Why don't you go and search him?" And he wasn't there at the time. He had parked his car nearby, and the police canine alerted on it. So the FBI wasn't involved at all, but because it's a federal violation, it's a federal gun crime to have drugs with your gun, then the feds rolled in. That's that they love to do. Gun crimes, right? If you commit a felony and have a gun, that's a federal gun crime. So they'll jump all over it. If you have drugs and have a gun, that's a federal gun crime. So the FBI is happy to take that off your hands. Shoot, when I was a police officer, I was dispatched the exact same thing. Exact same thing. Woman called up, said, I'm domesticating with my old boy. And she met me outside and said, "Hey, he's inside. I want him gone. He's got drugs." So I whipped out a little form. "It's your house, right, ma'am?" "Yep." "Do you consent to let me search?" "Yep." "Anywhere I want?" "Yep." Signed it, walked on in. "Hey, bud, need you to step up for me." Stood up, looked underneath the couch cushion, and found a bunch of dope. So he went to jail. He didn't go to federal jail. I guess I was able to slip that one past the goalie. I guess the FBI wasn't tuned in to what I was doing in Savannah, Georgia. Otherwise, they would have been all over it and taking credit. All right, let's go to Baltimore. FBI Baltimore and their Twitter account at FBI Baltimore. Baltimore man sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for his role in an armed carjacking and kidnapping. And this one is a doozy. So, went out to the District of Maryland, the United States Attorney's Office, and they give you some pretty egregious details here to what this jerk did. So, Dante Devon Stanley, June 2024. Man, Christopher Wray's FBI was really in. After a 3-week trial, a federal jury convicted him and his co-conspirators in connection with these carjackings. According to the evidence, in 2021, all right, guys, almost 5 years ago, the co-conspirators followed a victim from a check cashing business where she worked. They posed as law enforcement officers, so impersonated cops. They had a police-style light bar in their vehicle. They wore what looked like police vests and badges. They brandished firearms, and they wind up then handcuffing this woman, zip tying her, blindfolding her, putting a mask and duct tape over her, and then put her in the back seat of their car. So they drove away, and that's when things took an even darker turn because these jerks sexually assaulted this woman on top of carjacking her and kidnapping her. And they wanted access to the check cash, and they wanted access to the cash. So that was the evidence that was presented at trial for an offense that was committed in 2021, May of 2021. So this is a federal crime. This is kidnapping. There's a sexual assault attached to it. There's a gun involved. I mean, there's lots of ways you could take this federally, and you want to jam these guys up. I will note, though, May of 2021 would be fiscal year 2021, which means that it was on the FBI's books for 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and now 2026. 6 years to pop these guys. No, they were popped almost immediately, shortly thereafter, because I had to do a little bit of research. Like, how did these guys not just come on the radar? Like, how did they wind up getting arrested by the FBI? So I did this thing where I looked at the internet and found a story over from CBS News that I can pop up right now and found out just how bad it got, because it got worse than that. Headline from CBS News: Maryland man accused of kidnapping and burning victims with a blowtorch in a series of attempted robberies. Yeah, a blowtorch. That's kind of ugly to look at. So we'll take it down here. I'll just read you some more details of these characters. So 10 days after they kidnapped this woman and sexually assault her, they pulled over another guy, kidnapped him at gunpoint, duct taped him, and burned him with a blowtorch to try to find out the information about what was going on with the check cashing. Then they kidnapped another woman at gunpoint in early August. So you're talking like 3 months later. And she was leaving work. They wound up kidnapping her. They want the information about how they can rip off this other cash checking location. None of that, though, was in the press release. They really just wind up charging these guys for the initial kidnapping and carjacking and assault of this woman, and they did it with gun charges. Well, but there's so much more. Like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And then I got to the end of the CBS News article, and I will quote it. The three guys, last names Dorsey, Stanley, and Smith, quote, who are in custody on related state charges, are set to make their initial appearance in federal court on May 2nd. They got arrested on state charges by state authorities who investigated all of this without the help of the FBI. And then feds were happy to come on in. And now that all the danger's gone, now all these guys are out going doing armed carjacking and sexual assaults and burning people with blowtorches. Now that they're locked up, why don't you just shoot that report on over to us? And we'll be happy to take it to federal court and make sure we get the maximum amount of time. We'll forget to give you credit for it, though. Congratulations, America. FBI, Kayfabe, all over it. All right, let's go now to FBI Boston, which is one of my favorite ones. They still like to put out some of the most egregious examples of their own Kayfabe. This is a news release from at FBI Boston. Windsor man sentenced to 15 months in prison for extortion and thefts. Adjoining press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Massachusetts. And we find out what exactly happened here and who was involved. So, April 5th, 2023, nearly 3 years ago, Michael Rogers posted a threat on Google review of a medical practice, and his statement on their website was, quote, "They gonna get what's coming soon. Will be there in the morning to get them myself one way or another, locked and loaded." And he also put a picture of a gun. And then nothing happened for 366 days, because on April 6, 2024, Rogers submitted a threat through a fraud reporting website at the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General. And that's like an obscure office to start sending threatening emails to. But Michael Rogers seems like he's not really with it. I don't think he's got a full deck of cards between the ears. So he submits a threat to the Social Security Administrative Office of the Inspector General with his intent. He wanted to extort disability benefits out of the Social Security office. Quote, "I'm going to start taking what I need by any means necessary." And then he does the Donald Trump all capitals. "Give me my money or I'm going to start dropping people. You'll never find my weapons, so stop looking and give me my check." So a year passed. This guy was such a threat. The FBI got all over it. When that first interstate threat happened, when he put that comment on the medical facility, no action. And then when he posted it on a federal government's threat center, that's when they got spun up, because the Inspector General has 1811 criminal investigators, but they're typically looking at fraud that's going on in Social Security. So they likely roped in their FBI counterparts and liaised with them. And it was all over at that point. This guy had posted all that information on there, and they just had to go down to the grand jury and indict him. They let a year, though, elapse. So I don't know how strong the case to be made was that he presented a true threat, because 366 days passed. He didn't drop any bodies outside that medical facility. But again, interstate threats is a violation of federal law, and the FBI was able to go ahead and get credit for this crazy person. All right, now let's go to the FBI social media, where they were touting success in New York. From at FBI, case update from New York FBI, Indian national pleads guilty to plotting to assassinate a U.S. citizen in New York City. Well, I mean, that sounds like it's got some international intrigue. It's got some hitmen. This is the stuff that movies are made of, and this is the stuff the FBI loves to get all involved in. The headline from the United States Attorney's Office, the Southern District of New York, the crown jewel. This is the most prominent office within the Department of Justice The most prominent United States Attorney's Office is the Southern District of New York. Headline: Indian national pleads guilty to plotting to assassinate U.S. citizen in New York City. Now, this is a extremely long press release, and if you're watching us here on Rumble or on YouTube at AMRadPod, you'll see I'll scroll through this. Somebody put a lot of time into saying just how much awesomeness was involved here. But I was able to get sort of the cliff notes of what this crazy person did and who was actually responsible for bringing him into custody. And it wasn't the FBI. So our bad guy here, his name is Nikhil Gupta. And in 2023, he was plotting to assassinate an attorney and a political activist who was, I guess, against the current government in India. I don't know. I'm not really hip to Indian politics. But the guy was living in the United States, and this dude wanted to kill him. So Gupta, who was a citizen and a resident of India, described himself as an international narcotics and weapons trafficker. So, I mean, again, like international intrigue. We got all this on there. He was describing himself in his emails, which the FBI, I guess, got access to after the fact. He was recruited to orchestrate an assassination of this victim in the U.S. He contacted an individual who he believed to be a criminal associate, but was actually a confidential human source, but not an FBI human source, a DEA confidential source. So maybe he was actually involved in international narcotics trafficking. This guy Gupta talks to an informant for the DEA who says, hey, I can hook you up with a hitman. So he hooks him up with an undercover DEA agent claiming to be a hitman. And then when they go forward and they try to do the assassination plot, bam, throw the flashbang at his feet, and he goes to jail. Now, I don't know the details. I'll have to actually, this might be worth looking into the criminal complaint of just how crazy this dude was. But for our purposes today, the DEA is responsible for interdicting an attempted assassination plot. But FBI, their social media wouldn't let you know that one because, again, I'll throw it up. Case update, and you have a statement from the espionage division, the assistant director in charge of that, Roman Rozhovsky, FBI counterintelligence and espionage division, quote, the message from the FBI should be clear. No matter where you're located, if you try to harm our citizens, we will not stop until you are brought to justice. Or if the DEA can handle it and we can take credit, that'd be just fine by us. All right, I've got a couple more and we can churn through them pretty quickly. FBI Jacksonville, my old stopping grounds, social media, Twitter page says, Tallahassee sexual predator sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for distribution and receipt of child pornography. The Northern District of Florida says the exact same thing. The facts of this case, July 2024, Christopher Wray's FBI all over it, but not really, because the Tallahassee Police Department received a cyber tip report from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, alleging that the defendant uploaded child pornography to a social media platform when sending it to another user as part of his chat messages. So then they wind up investigating and busting this dude for possessing and distributing child pornography. Let me let you know how this happens. So NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, those are people who professionally watch child pornography all day long. Those are the people who recover children because they're able to identify who they are maybe decades later. And then the FBI, Kash Patel, says, we recovered 6,000 children. No, that's not what happened. But NCMEC will analyze tips that come in from Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, whatever it is. They'll say, hey, our artificial intelligence or maybe our professionals, they found something. It looks like it might be child pornography. We've assessed it. Can you analyze it? NCMEC will look at it and say, yep, that's definitely child pornography. We're going to put this in to the platform that law enforcement have. We will generate this dashboard, what is called a cyber tip. And then the cyber tip gets disseminated to the area where NCMEC has assessed, and NCMEC and the platform, the Facebook, has said, hey, look, child pornography, it's registering, the account is pinging in Tallahassee, Florida. So they'll distribute it to whoever is in that area, whoever is signed up to receive the cyber tip in that area. And here, in this point, the Tallahassee Police Department was signed up. They probably have some detectives who work on child pornography matters. They get a ping to their email, they log in, they assess it. I mean, it's all kind of laid out for you pretty sequentially. It's not very complicated. It's turning a wrench. There's just so much of it. And they went and did a great job. The addendum that I will add was that I had access to the NCMEC cyber tips, not from the FBI. The Volusia County Sheriff's Office, Internet Crimes Against Children detectives gave me access to their portal so that I could look at it. The FBI couldn't be bothered to be involved in it. But, when you get the eventual arrest, when you eventually get your bad guy, well, having that child pornography, we could put him in federal prison for a lot longer. Why don't you just hand that on over to us and we'll take it to the United States Attorney's Office and claim credit for it on social media. All right, I've got one more that I want to get to, and then we will send you off with a fun palate cleanse that is keeping with our theme for the day. And this one comes from FBI Charlotte. At FBI Charlotte, after an FBI investigation, a man from Raleigh pled guilty to taking 2 machine gun conversion devices to a concert. All right, what happened? Press release from the Eastern District of North Carolina. It'll tell you the details, and they just hope you don't read it. October 24th, 2025. So under this FBI, under the great esteemed leadership of frat boy Kash Patel, law enforcement stopped Luis Alberto Guerrera Martinez as he drove erratically in a parking lot between North Carolina State Fair and the Lenovo Center. The North Carolina State Fair was in full swing. So this guy was just driving around doing like donuts because he was high as a kite. And the cops who were pulling security at the state fair pulled him over. So they pull him over, they smell the weed on him, they wind up grabbing him because he tries to run away, and then they search him, and they find 5 guns and 2 drop-in sears. A sear is basically like a conversion for a semi-automatic firearm in order to make it a automatic firearm or function like that. And there's the picture. Lots of guns this guy had. Who knows if he was planning to do anything? The only reason that he came on the radar of law enforcement was because he was driving around like a crazy person. And the only reason the FBI jumped on it was because they could say machine guns. And the FBI hates guns, which would explain why FBI Director Kash Patel sent a SWAT team to protect his girlfriend or his friend who's a girl, we don't know, when she went to an NRA convention to sing the national anthem. All right, so that's it for the FBI Kayfabe for the day. But I'm not going to leave you without a fun palate cleanse, because the cops that were at the North Carolina State Fair, they were all over it, as were the cops who were in Tallahassee, as were the cops who are just about every single one of the stories today. And they never get the credit they deserve. But in my neck of the woods, we recently had a carjacking that happened with 4 dudes, armed carjacking, ended in a police chase, and then ended in the best way possible. And that's with the land shark getting to take a chunk out of a guy's arm. So today's palate cleanse, enjoy it, courtesy of Volusia County Sheriff's Office, Daytona Police Department, Port Orange Police Department. Don't run from the police.
Get on the ground, do it now! Get on the ground, do it now! Driver, passenger, get out! Get out on your face! Get on your face, do it now! Stop, you're gonna get bit! Here! 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 Talk it! Here! Here! Dog out! Watch out! Dog out! Dog out! Pocket, buddy, pocket! Go! Pocket, here! Go! Pocket! Watch out! Dog! Watch out! I got him! Go get some milk! Pocket! Ow! Okay! Get on the fucking ground! Okay! Pocket! Okay!
Ooh, almost ripped that guy's hand off. All right, guys, that's it for us today on the American Radicals podcast. Thanks as always for joining us. Plan to be back with you tomorrow, noontime here on YouTube at AmRadPod, rumble.com/AmRadPod. And until then, have a great day.
You've been listening to the American Radicals podcast. Find us on YouTube, Rumble, and X at AmRadPod.